13 minutes past 7 is the time now. Veterans of Britain's nuclear testing programme will receive a medal to honour their service. This is 70 years after the first test was carried out.
40,000 British personnel took part. Around 2,000 are believed to be still alive. Our reporter Liz Cooper went to see the first medals roll off the production line.
70 years on from Britain's first nuclear test, and these are the medals which will be awarded to veterans. Watching production in Birmingham, 89-year-old John Robinson. As a young pilot, he flew aircraft taking test samples.
Having flown through the clouds, then the aircraft were badly contaminated, obviously, and so were we to a lesser extent, because you just can't keep all the types of radiation out of the cabin, and although the air conditioning was specially modified to get as much matter out of it, we still were. Radiation had collected on us.
The UK tested its first atomic bomb in 1952 in the Pacific. Around 40,000 British personnel took part in testing of atomic and hydrogen bombs throughout the 50s and 60s. Many veterans and their families say exposure led to serious health conditions. The Ministry of Defence has said 4 large studies have found no valid evidence to link participation in these tests to ill health. More than 1,000 British veterans and civilians are believed to be alive today. Their medals are being made by Worcestershire Medal Service at their workshops in Birmingham's Jewellery Quarter. The design is symbolic.
The reverse has the atom and an olive branch. The ribbon represents the white of the blast, yellow and red from the fireball, the black of the fallout, and the blue represents the Pacific Ocean, the skies of Australia, where the tests were carried out.
The Veterans Minister visited the factory to see production underway. It's taken years of campaigning for the government to agree to recognise the nuclear test veterans with a medal.
There's a lot of people who campaigned on this over many years, and I'm delighted this is all why you're in politics, to actually do stuff for people who need you to do it for them, and that's what we did with this medal campaign.
These medals will be on display on Remembrance Sunday, when test veterans will march along Whitehall. This award, a recognition for their service.
Liz Copper reporting there. Well, we're joined now by nuclear test veteran John Morris. John, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And Steve Pearce, whose father also served and has helped campaign for their recognition as well. Steve, good morning to you as well.
Good morning.
John, you were exposed to these tests. What was your experience and when did it happen?
I was a national serviceman and I was ordered to go to Christmas Island. I think the reason I was ordered to go to Christmas Island, I was a young man, 18 years old, single, as fit as a butcher's dog, as they would say, and I would suggest that the number of people, I was the contingent of about 3,000 originally. I would say most of those 3,000 were similar to my age. And as the story will unfold, I consider we were used as human guinea pigs because of our fitness, and they could monitor our health. And if anything went wrong, we had no dependents that were dependent upon us.
You were exposed to 4, weren't you? 4 events?
I was there for 4. 3 of them were dropped several hundred miles away, but you were aware of the explosions because the sea levels rose. I mean, we were on a tiny atoll, and for example, our football pitch used to get flooded when a bomb had gone off. We never thought about it. I mean, I was 18, 19. No, I hadn't a clue. I didn't know I was going to Christmas Island for atomic weapons.
Can I ask you, John, there'll be people, some people will be familiar with the story before and the campaign, others won't. Just explain for people, what was the point in time when you realised something had happened that shouldn't have happened? What happened that made you aware?
I'll go back quite a long time. I've been fighting this battle now for over 60 years. And I think it started, I had a young son, Stephen, who I will cover later, who unfortunately died. I then started making inquiries in relation to some of my colleagues who were on the island with me. And I'd found out that some of those that got married, their wives had had miscarriages, or there were problems of various sorts. Never, I was 26 then, it never really registered. I mean, when you're a young man, 18 to 20, you don't think.
But gradually you're hearing stories and
Yes.
you start to think, what is there something, a cause in there?
That's right. And then I got involved in the court cases with Rosenblatt, the solicitors of London. And it became plainly obvious as I started to speak to veterans that there was huge health problems in relation to so many people. And not only in the veterans themselves, but some of these people had had family.
Well, I think this is a good point to bring Steve in here. Steve, you've been listening. Your father was an RAF officer, wasn't he? Pick up the story and pick up the consequences you think of his experience and what they've had on your family.
Yes, Dad served at Maralinga in South Australia, where they did some of the most toxic, the most polluting experiments of the whole nuclear test program. My dad was there for a year, and then he came back and got married and had children, one of which was myself. And it was obvious from the moment I was born that there was a problem. And this affected the whole family. Growing up, I knew there was a secret because Dad had only ever admitted to Mum, shortly after I was born, it's my fault. It's because I served in Australia. And then he never said anything else about it. So I was aware that there was some sort of family secret to do with me. And it was only later on that when I understood about radiation and I understood about atomic weapons, that actually that could be the reason, the way I have, is the reason I have quite a few disabilities.
Steve, can you describe those? Can you describe? I mean, you've called it a problem, but now you've said disabilities. Can you describe the impact this has had on you in terms of your disabilities, and also what has been recognised or linked to your father's experiences?
Well, I was born with several disabilities, and mostly physical. So this has impacted my life hugely. I mean, impacts me every day. One of my disabilities is short stature. So for me, the world isn't built right. Everything's too big. So I can't get myself a glass of water. I can't do the jobs I want. I can't buy a car easily. I have to have adapted cars. So every aspect of my life is different. And knowing that it's to do with the atomic weapons, it's obviously never been proven, but the statistical evidence speaks for itself. 10 times the descendants have 10 times the birth rate defect that you would find in the general population. And that sort of figure can't be ignored. So families like mine have had to suffer the trauma and stress of living with disabled children and disabled family members, and yet there's nothing from the government to help us. They're hiding our dad's medical records. They just won't give them to us. They lie to us. They say 1 minute they know where they are, but they can't find them. They know where they are, but they won't give us them. Then it's they've lost them. Then it's they just can't find them. And it's just this stress is just repeated in time after time after time, in family after family. And it's been going on for decades. And it kind of wears you down. I mean, I'm still fighting to get my dad's records because we need the records to get some meaningful research done, because I've got a son. Rightly or wrongly, I chose to have a son, and I do worry that I played genetic Russian roulette with his life. He's fine at the moment, but he's only 2 years old, and a lot of the problems come along in adolescence. So we need the research into descendants to see what's going to happen to my son in the future.
Okay,
Is
Steve.
the NHS going to be able to cope?
Yeah, thank you for being so candid about what you're saying. And John, I saw you nodding along to what a lot of Steve was saying there. Jumped out at me, in amongst some of the detail of what he was saying, that sense that Steve said his dad felt he was to blame, that he carried that blame with him, when he's obviously and clearly blameless, because you, in the same way, did not know.
No, we'd no idea of what we were going to. We were never informed. You were ordered to go. For example, I was sat 20 miles from the centre of an atomic bomb. I was ordered to sit down with my back to the bomb with a pair of trousers on and a shirt, and I hadn't got the remotest idea of what I was going to see, and suddenly the bomb went off. Now, it's the most terrifying thing I've ever seen in the whole of my life. And I'm disturbed that I've been part of this experiment, that I have helped create a monster that my children are going to have to deal with. And the problems that causes with one's mind and head is immeasurable. And we've had no help at all.
Well, I was going to ask you
on
a practical note now. So we know these medals will exist, and so that will be a thing. In terms of practical things you would like to see happen, for your own, so you have more knowledge, so you have the information, what are those? What would that be?
Well, the first thing, our doctors, my medical records were never shared with my doctor. So that I, at the age 26, was diagnosed with a blood disorder where I need B12 injections every 3 months. And I've had those now for over 50 years, well, 60 years. And when I talked to my doctor, he said, I can't help you, John. He said, I don't know exactly what I'm dealing with. And he said, like Steve said, my medical records are not correct. I had blood taken on at least 5 occasions, and I cannot get any record that I had lost. One MP had the gall to turn around and say, if they want these medical records, tell them to go and find them themselves. And that is the stonewalling we've faced over many, many years.
Well, I appreciate you telling your story so vividly, and I know it's a story that people should know, isn't it? Which is very important. John, thank you so much. Steve, really thank you as well, also for being so candid and telling us your story. It is clearly something we will look at in the future and see what the next step is, because I'm sure things will happen. Thank you both very much.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you for the opportunity.
It's 26 minutes past 7.